This house was never sold. It was returned. The first time it happened, I thought I was dreaming. That state between sleep and awake, where nothing is quite real. I was in my new room, air thick with cardboard and paint. My phone cast a faint glow. 1:11 a.m. I watched the number, breathing slow, eyes heavy. The minute ticked over. 1:12 a.m. That's when I heard it. A voice, like dry leaves skittering, whispering from the darkest corner of my room. It was just a breath, a piece of a word. My eyes shot open, heart hammering. The room was silent again, empty. I'd only been in the house for a day. A house my parents celebrated, bought for a low price. A house, I would soon find out, that was never meant to be sold. It was only ever returned. We moved in during the last week of summer, a desperate attempt for a fresh start before my senior year. The house was a two-story colonial at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, tucked against thick woods. It was run down, with peeling paint and groaning porch steps. Mom called it character. Dad called it a miracle. He'd found the listing online, on the market for a year, price dropping until it was a giveaway. When Dad asked the realtor why, she gave a vague answer about a highly motivated seller. Her eyes never met ours, always glancing over our shoulders, back toward the house itself. But my parents weren't looking for problems. They were looking for a deal, and they found one. For the first few days, it was almost perfect. I loved the space, the freedom. My room was on the second floor, with a big window looking out over dark, still trees. I spent hours unpacking, arranging books, trying to make the unfamiliar space feel like mine. The house was quiet, a peaceful, normal kind of quiet. I had no idea how much I dread that silence. The first hint that something was wrong, beyond my dream, came the very next night. I'd been having trouble sleeping, that new house insomnia that leaves you staring at the ceiling. I made a point of closing my bedroom door all the way. I remember the sharp click of the latch. I lay there for hours, listening to the old house settle, groans of wood, sighs of pipes. I was still awake when my phone lit up with a notification. 1:12 a.m. Right on cue, I heard a soft creak. I turned my head. My door was open, just a crack. A sliver of pure darkness from the hallway stared in, and I hadn't heard a single footstep. Just a coincidence, I told myself. Old houses have drafts. Old doors don't always latch. I got up, shut it firmly, and slid a heavy textbook against the bottom for good measure. The next night, I was determined not to let it spook me. I stayed up, scrolling, watching the clock. The house was dead silent. Then, at exactly 1:12 a.m., it happened again. Not my door this time. It was a sound from downstairs, a single soft thud, like a footstep. I held my breath, straining my ears. Nothing. Just that heavy silence rushing back in. The next morning, I asked them. Dad laughed. "This old girl has stories. You'll get used to her noises." Mom looked worried, asking if I was anxious about school. They didn't believe me. To them, it was just the house settling. To me, it felt like something waking up. A week went by. It kept happening. Every night at precisely 1:12 a.m., something would happen. Small things, easily explained away. But it was the timing I couldn't shake. Never 1:11, never 1:13. It was like a promise. Then, on the 8th night, the whisper came back. It came from the corner again, from those deep shadows. Clearer this time, colder. Terrifyingly, it sounded like my own voice, drained of life. A dry, rasping hiss. It spoke one word, "Get," and then vanished. That's when the fear really sunk in. This wasn't just a noisy house. I started to feel watched, even in the middle of the day. That prickling sensation on my neck, I started exploring, desperate for any answer that wasn't, "I'm going crazy." I went to the basement, The door was a heavy slab leading down rickety stairs. The air hit me, cold, damp earth, rot. Downstairs, a single bare bulb lit concrete and stone. I ran my hand along a support beam when I felt it. Carvings. I pulled out my phone, used its flashlight. They were names, gouged with what looked like a nail. Messy, almost frantic. Anna, 2003. David, 2011. The last one followed by a scratched-out word. It was a list of everyone who had come before. A list that felt like a warning. The next afternoon, I saw our neighbor, Mrs. Gable, tending her garden. I walked over and introduced myself. She was polite, but her eyes kept flicking back to my house, a strange, pitying look. "It's a big house for just the three of you," she said. "We're still getting used to the noises." Her smile evaporated. She put down her trowel, looked right at me, voice dropping. "Does it still wait in the hallway?" The question hung there, chilling. Before I could ask, she shook her head, muttered about ramblings, and hurried inside, leaving me alone on the sidewalk with my blood running cold. It did wait in the hallway. That night, I knew I had to see it. I left my door open just a crack, staring into the dark corridor. When 1:12 a.m. hit, the usual chill filled the air. And then I saw it. For just a second, at the far end of the hall, a shape took form out of the shadows. It was tall, impossibly tall and thin. A silhouette of a man, but darker than the darkness. It had no features, no clothes, just a void in the shape of a person. I blinked and it was gone. And then it all clicked. The cheap price, the realtor's evasiveness, the names in the basement, Mrs. Gable's question. This house wasn't an investment. It was a curse you inherited. People didn't sell it and move on. They returned it. They fled. I tried to explain it all to my parents, showed them pictures of the names, told them what Mrs. Gable said. Dad got frustrated, said I was imagining things. Mom looked sad, convinced the stress broke me. They were talking about a therapist. I'd never felt so alone. That night, I huddled under my covers, just listening. 1:12 a.m. came. The silence was absolute. I thought, for one hopeful second, maybe it was over. Then, the whisper came, not from the corner, but right beside my ear. My own voice, clear, articulate, devoid of warmth. It finished its sentence, "Get out." That was it. I was done. I couldn't spend one more night in that house. While my parents slept, I packed a backpack. Plan, slip out, walk to the gas station, call Sarah. Anything was better than waiting for that clock to turn again. My bag was packed, hand on the doorknob. I glanced at my phone one last time. 1:11 a.m. My heart just dropped. I was out of time. As the numbers flipped to 1:12, the sounds started. All at once. The door didn't just creak. A slow, heavy tread began directly above me in the attic. Thump, thump, thump. And at the exact same time, another set of footsteps started coming up from the basement. They were surrounding me. The handle on my door began to jiggle. Slowly at first, then with frantic, impossible violence. A chorus of whispers exploded, 100 versions of my own dead voice chanting, "Stay, stay, stay." Pure panic gave me a burst of strength. I lunged and shoved my heavy oak dresser against the door with a deafening scrape. The rattling stopped. The footsteps stopped. The whispers died. Silence. A terrifying, expectant silence. Then came a new sound. A low, wet scraping from the corner of my room. The corner that had always been the darkest. I turned, slowly. A form was unfolding itself from the shadows, rising like black smoke. It was tall and gaunt, limbs too long, moving with a jerky, unnatural twitch. It had smooth, pale skin where a face should have been. As it turned its blank head toward me, a mouth opened. A wound in the featureless canvas, a slit that stretched far, far too wide. It spoke, but the voice wasn't the whisper, and it wasn't mine. It was my father's voice, full of warmth and authority. "You're not going anywhere." I don't remember screaming, but my parents say it's a sound they'll never forget. They found me, moments later, curled in a ball. The dresser moved, the doorknob bent. They saw the sheer animal terror in my eyes, and they finally believed me. We were gone by sunrise. We didn't pack. We left the furniture, the clothes, the boxes. We got in the car and just drove, putting as many miles as we could between us and that house. We returned it, just like everyone else. We spent the next week in a sterile motel room. For a few days, there was nothing. No sounds, no whispers. I started to breathe again. I started to think maybe it was over, that the entity was tied to the house. I was wrong. On the 7th night, I was jolted awake by a sound. My phone on the nightstand was chiming. I hadn't set one. I snatched it, hands shaking, staring at the screen. The time was 1:12 a.m. And from the closet in the corner of the dark motel room, I heard a soft, deliberate knock. Some places just don't let you go. If you want to hear more stories about the secrets that hide in the shadows, be sure to subscribe. Thanks for listening.